Hi everyone, welcome back. You're watching Smoke Trails Barbecue and my name is Steve Gao. Last week I cooked up a 12-pound brisket on the Pit Boss 456D pellet smoker, and let me tell you, it was super good. But for some reason, I just didn't finish the entire brisket, so now I'm left wondering what I'm gonna do with about a pound of leftover cubed brisket. It's still really good meat and I didn't want to waste it. I wanted to do something really special with it. So I decided to make a smoked brisket chili. And that's what we're gonna do in this video. So stick around, let's get to it. Let's do a quick overview of what you'll need for this recipe. To start with, we're gonna do 1 cup of chopped celery, a cup of chopped carrots. We've got 2 cups of chopped onion, and we've got half of a whole onion. I'll explain that later. We've got some whole canned tomatoes. This is 1 can, so 28 fluid ounces of whole tomatoes. We've got 12 cups of beef stock. Any type of beef stock will do from the store. We've got 8 ounces of beef tendon. Now you can find beef tendon in most grocery stores, usually in the butcher section. It might be frozen and it might be near other pieces of meat like oxtail and stuff like that, less used cuts of meat. But you can find it usually in most grocery stores. We've got 3 dried chili peppers, just red chili peppers, 2 tablespoons of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of pepper. We've got a mix of 1 teaspoon of rosemary, 1 teaspoon of coriander, and 1 teaspoon of oregano, and 1 tablespoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of coarse grained salt, and of course we've got our 1 pound of cubed brisket. We've got about 2 tablespoons of diced garlic. And then to eat with the chili, I've got this fresh baked bread. You can use whatever your favorite bread is, but I'm just gonna dip this into the chili when it's all done. Now I'm gonna start by turning the burner on the stove in our stock pot, and I'm just gonna put a little splash of canola oil into the bottom. And we're gonna take our half an onion, and we're just gonna place it face down into the bottom of the pot. We're gonna actually burn the onion. We're gonna glaze it to the surface of the pot, to the bottom. And it's okay that we're burning it because we're just adding that layer of crust on the bottom that's glazed on. And we're gonna deglaze it afterwards with the rest of the liquid that we add. This is to add a nice onion flavor to the chili, and it's really gonna pay off if you do this step. So just start by putting the onion down, rubbing it around in the oil a little bit, and just leave it there. Let it sit. You can cover it, make sure the fan on your oven is on, and just let it burn onto the bottom of the pot. All right, let's see how this is doing. Okay, so we've glazed this onion onto the bottom of the pot for about 3 minutes. You can see that the juices from the onion have started to come out, and then they're glazing to the bottom of the pot. That's what we want. And there's gonna be a bit of burnt onion on the bottom, right where the onion was, so that's fine. So we'll take this out, and we'll just throw it away. Now we're going to add our carrots, onion, and celery. This is what's called a mirepoix. It's a standard in French cuisine to add a lot of flavor to any sort of stock or any sort of dish. So we're just gonna pour this in. And we'll just stir it around. I'm going to also add in the garlic at this point. And we're just gonna continue stirring until the onion starts to become a little bit translucent. There we go. Now I'm just stirring this onion and carrot and celery just to make sure that nothing gets too burnt. We've already created that nice burnt glaze on the bottom with that onion that we put in. So we don't want anything else getting too burnt. So we're just moving it around the pot until we get a nice crust on the outside of the onion. They're starting to get a little bit translucent. And then once we hit that point, we're gonna start putting our tomatoes in. So we're looking pretty good here. I'm gonna start adding these tomatoes in now. So I'm gonna put a glove on, and I'm just gonna crush these tomatoes into the pot, just like this. Woo! That was a little bit messy. Try not to do that next time. Just like that. Don't have to be too careful, you can get a bit messy here. Just crushing the tomatoes. Really, you're just kind of breaking them in half, letting the seeds out, letting all the juices soak down through the mirepoix and down onto that glazed onion. And all of the juice in these tomatoes is actually going to start deglazing the bottom of the pot. So all that glazed onion that we just burnt onto the bottom of the pot, this is going to start lifting up all of that flavor, all of that nice toasted onion flavor. And it's going to start dissolving it. So the bottom of the pot will actually start getting a lot cleaner once we start mixing all of this tomato in. So now we'll just give that a nice mix. And I'll see if I can give you a close-up here. So here's a better view. You can see that the juices are soaking down to the bottom of the pot, and as they heat up, they're gonna start picking up all that burnt onion on the bottom of the pot, and oh, it already smells super good. Wow, nice. And as this tomato juice starts to pick up all the flavors from the glaze on the bottom of the pot, we're gonna start actually glazing the tomatoes because we're gonna get a lot of evaporative moisture loss coming off the tomatoes. They're gonna start rendering down, they're gonna start losing a lot of moisture, and we're gonna start glazing them in the same way that we glaze that onion. So we're almost baking all of that tomato flavor that just picked up the glazed onion flavor back onto the bottom of the pot again. And then we'll deglaze it with the beef stock after we've glazed it onto the bottom of the pot again. Now this might seem like a lot of work, but this is what restaurants do to make really delicious food, and especially to make really delicious stock and soups. You glaze the bottom, you use your mirepoix, you make a base with your carrots, your onion, and your celery. You glaze everything, you deglaze it, you glaze it again, and through that process you're creating just this unique combination of flavors that's really tasty and really good. And now I've been stirring for about 5 minutes, and you can see that all of that tomato juice has evaporated and it's starting to become a paste, and it's starting to glaze on the bottom of the pot. Sort of a reddish orange layer that's forming there. It's losing a lot of moisture, and we're just rendering it all down. So that's exactly what you want. And now that we've glazed our tomato to the bottom of the pot, we're gonna take our beef stock and we're just gonna slowly pour it in. And this is deglazing whatever's stuck to the bottom of the pot. Make sure you're increasing the temperature on your stove because we want to heat this beef stock up as fast as possible. So we'll pour that all in. This is going to cool everything right down. Give it a stir. And we'll just wait for it to come up to temperature. Okay, we'll give that another stir. Now, as this is coming up to temperature, we're gonna add in our beef tendon, and you might be wondering, why the heck are we adding beef tendon into a chili recipe? You probably haven't seen a chili recipe that calls for beef tendon before. It's kind of a weird cut of meat to put in a chili, but what this does is it's going to render over the course of the 3 hours that we're simmering this chili, and it's gonna render into gelatin, and all that gelatin is gonna add a super savory flavor and a thickness to the chili. Now, you can add thickness in other ways to chili. You can add flour, you can add beans, you can add lots of tomatoes because that adds extra fiber. But in this case, we're using actual beef gelatin. It's kind of like chicken soup. If you've ever made chicken soup from the carcass of a chicken, or maybe turkey soup from the carcass of a turkey, you'll notice that if you leave it in the fridge overnight, it'll actually solidify and there's lots of gelatin in it. And that's what makes it so tasty. It's the same type of concept, but we're just doing it with beef and we're doing it in chili format. Just slowly introduce those into the pot. After about 3 hours of simmering this, we're actually gonna remove the beef tendon. So you're not gonna leave it in the final chili. It's going to come out, but all the gelatin will have rendered off it and it'll be much smaller. We'll give this another stir. And now we're gonna add in our dried chilies. So we wanna add these in as early as possible because they need some time to rehydrate. So we'll put those in. We're also gonna add our spices and herbs. So we've got our rosemary, our oregano, we've got some coriander here. Just introduce that into the chili. And then we got our chili powder. We'll just sprinkle that in. And our coarsely ground pepper. And finally, we've got some cumin. 1 tablespoon of cumin, we'll put in, and then we'll give it a stir. As the beef stock comes up to temperature, we're gonna turn it down to simmer it, and you're gonna notice that a lot of scum is gonna rise to the surface. So What I like to do is just take a slotted spoon or a regular spoon and just carefully remove that scum from the surface. And it's gonna keep coming up throughout the cook. And you just wanna continue to just clean the surface off. And that's just gonna result in much better flavor. It's gonna be nice, cleaner flavor. You can see that these chilies are starting to rehydrate, starting to introduce a lot of flavor into this forming chili. I'd call this a chili base right now. Wouldn't really call it a chili. Now we'll stir this up just a little bit more. And after it's come up to temperature and it's simmering, then we'll just put the lid on and we're gonna let it simmer for about 2.5 to 3 hours. And that's gonna give it enough time to render all that gelatin out of the beef tendon and release all the flavor in all the spices and the mirepoix and the tomato that we put into this stock, and it's gonna turn out awesome. So we'll put the lid on and we'll check back in about an hour or so. But as I said, it's gonna be about 2.5, 3 hours to get this fully rendered out. Okay, it's been about 3 hours now, so we're gonna check on how our chili's doing. So we'll take the lid off here. Oh man. That looks good, wow. Stir it up a little bit here. So I'll fish one of these beef tendons out. And you can see that it's changed quite a bit. It's shrunk. You can see that a lot of the collagen has come out. This looks a lot more like gelatin now, and that's what we want. That gelatin is starting to leach out into the actual chili, and it's gonna create this nice, thick consistency. It's gonna be so good. So I'm gonna just put this in a little container here, and I'll take the other one out as well. You can see this one really shrunk down. So we'll take that one out. And if I remember correctly, there were 3, so hopefully I can find the other one here. There we go. So there's the other one. That's probably the smallest of the 3. We'll take that out. And I'm also going to fish out the dried peppers as well, because these are still kind of hard. They've been dried for a long time, so I'm gonna take these out. Those probably wouldn't be that good to eat. They've contributed a lot of flavor to the chili already, so I'm not too worried about taking them out at this point. I think I got all of them. There might have been a third one in there. There we go. Well, let's see if I can grab that. I'll put that to the side. Okay. So now the moment you've been waiting for this whole video, we're gonna add our brisket into this chili. So let's get it out of the fridge. Okay. So we've got our brisket here. This is 1 pound of brisket. It's roughly cubed. It's probably cubed into 1 inch by 1/2 inch cubes. I previously had it cut into slices, so it was a bit thin. Now, the reason I'm putting it in at the end of the cook rather than 3 hours ago when we started simmering is because I don't want to overcook the brisket. I don't want it falling apart. I still want chunks of brisket in my chili, and I still want some nice bite to them. So that's why I'm doing it now. All right, now this is really hot, so make sure that you have a spoon that's sort of able to ease the brisket into this liquid, because otherwise it's going to splash up and it is going to burn you, and you don't want that. Okay, there we go. So our brisket is in the chili, and now we're just going to stir it up a little bit. And at this point, I'm going to put this on the Pit Boss 456D. I'm gonna preheat the temperature setting to 225. I'll load it with hickory pellets, and then I'll put it on for another half an hour to an hour, just to get some smoky flavor on the outside. And then after that, it'll be ready to serve up. All right, guys, this chili just came off the Pit Boss 456D, and it smells so good. I'm super excited to dig into it. So I'm just gonna cut a little piece of bread off of this loaf here, just to dip in the chili. And now I'm gonna take a taste. Whew. Man, this looks good. Oh my God. This is so good. You know, I don't compete in chili competitions or anything, but for a second I was thinking I should keep this recipe to myself, because it tastes like an award-winning chili recipe. This is amazing. Like, I've never had chili this good in my life. Oh my God. Taste some of this brisket. Oh man, this is so good. There's so many like layers of flavor in this brisket. There's the onion that we sauteed at the very beginning. We glazed it, then we deglazed it, then we glazed on that tomato, and then we deglazed it again. And then we developed all those flavors with the beef tendon, all the collagen and the gelatin that we got out of that beef tendon soaked into this soup, just made lip smacking good taste. Like, oh my God, it's just so good. I'll try to show you guys this a little bit. You can see the brisket, you can still see the smoke ring on some of the brisket pieces from the original cook. This just permeated with this delicious flavor that's been layered and layered and layered through that 3 hours of simmering. And then that additional 1 hour on the pit boss. You have that smoky flavor. Oh man, it's just so good. Guys, I'm super happy with this. This is the best chili I've ever made in my life. Please steal this recipe. Please improve on it. Please make it your own. And I hope that you save some brisket the next time you do a brisket, because this is really worth it. It's really worth taking that brisket and elevating it to the next level in a chili, better than any chili you've ever had in your life. Trust me, you guys gotta do this. Thanks for watching, guys. Happy smoking.